Hello, and welcome to PDX Garden Home. This week it is mid to late September, and it's been quite rainy here for the last week and a half or so, and we brought our seedlings into the greenhouse now. It's probably not going to get too hot for them for the rest of the year now, where we're at. And yeah, some of these seedlings are designed to be fall crops. I even have some basil over here, but I've got some lettuces and bok choy and things of that nature that we'll put in the ground for to see if we can get anything for the fall before winter sets in. And then some of these are flowers that are perennials that we're growing that we'll have ready for the next year. And then back here, what we have is quinoa drying, and I knew better than this. I shouldn't have done this, but I harvested it while it was wet, and that's a big no-no. That's probably a no-no with any particular grain. And you can see kind of what happened with that is that it caused the seeds actually sprouted on me here. And then in some cases we've got kind of mold on the seed heads. So that's basically the result of me harvesting at the wrong time. So I'll kind of let it sit here and see if it dries out enough that I might get something from it. But yeah, that's gardening the way I do it anyway, the hard way. So we'll see it happen. We'll see what happens with our quinoa next year. We'll try again and try to harvest it at the right time. But let's take a look at what's coming up on the rest of this week's episode. On today's episode, we're going to be trimming the bay leaf tree. We've let this tree grow without too much trimming of the inner branches, so they started to cross over, and it's getting quite tall. So we're going to trim it back quite severely for the fall, and then see how it grows out for next year. Then we're going to head back into the kitchen garden and harvest our Brussel sprouts that have been growing all season. Finally, we're going to nearby harvest the Bok Choy and continue dealing with our white fly problem. Okay, so I'm tackling this bay leaf tree. We've kind of let it get taller than we wanted here, so I'm going to be pretty aggressive with trimming the top off of it, and then I think what I'm going to do is I will trim the top off of it, and then I'll start shaping it from there. So I'm not going to worry so much about shape at first while I'm just kind of trying to trim the top off. Looks like these branches are pretty thin or greenish, so I might be able to just use my hand clippers for a lot of it. So yeah, bear with me here. All right, extend these out to see if I can get the rest of this from this position. Cross my fingers, we'll see. Okay. I think I've got my general height. Yeah, that's the main trunk of the tree, and our bird's nest sits right at the top of it, and I don't think I have to bother it, although trimming all these branches around it probably makes it unusable going forward, but I'm just going to leave it there for now. Give it the appearance of a more or less straight trunk, although we have two trunk pieces that are fairly old there, so I'll keep it with two trunk pieces, but I want to kind of have it bare and then have it kind of a little bush at the top. That's the goal. Doing some gymnastics here to avoid stepping on too many plants. Cut off as close to the trunk as I can. Oh, there we go. Okay. I think that's the look I'm going for. Well, it's Brussels sprout time. Between now and November is when typically I end up being able to harvest Brussels sprouts. And sometimes I don't get the timing quite right. These Brussels sprouts here were actually planted in the spring. So they went in with our initial spring plantings, and it took all season for them to grow to a point where the Brussels sprouts are able to be harvested. I've had some others that we planted in July, but I don't think I even have them in the field yet. They're still in trays, so those may end up overwintering. And as you can see here, I've chopped off the leaves of our Brussels sprouts, and that's because we were attacked by whitefly. A lot of times I've struggled with the cabbage moth and the caterpillars, which eat holes in the leaves, but that really wasn't the problem this year. This year we had an infestation of whitefly, and so it's challenging to get rid of it, and I didn't totally get rid of it, but by chopping the leaves off, because these normally would have just huge leaves all the way down to the base. By chopping the leaves off, I reduced the habitation space for the whitefly, and then I could put some organic sprays to try to cut down on them. It didn't eliminate them, because as I harvest here, you'll see them kind of flying around probably a little bit. So I don't know what other people call them, but I just call them the Brussels sprouts canes that I have here, and I'm going to harvest a few of them. We're not going to harvest all of them because some of them are still, the Brussels sprouts are still kind of smallish, but also you can kind of see, you know that they're past ready essentially to harvest when the leaves on the individual sprouts are starting to open up a little bit. So the first step is for me to get in here and basically cut out some of these canes. And I'm just, because we do no dig, I'm not looking to necessarily pull the root out of the ground. I'm just going to cut the cane off there, and you can see all those white flies flying around there. And then I'm not going to need the top here, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut the top of my cane off, throw it in my compost, and then I've got my Brussels sprout cane here. These are just old leaf stems, and I'm going to plop that in there for now. Once I get a bunch of canes in there, then we'll come back and pull the Brussels sprouts off the canes. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to do this one too. Cut the top off first. Cut off the base. There we go. They're small, but the leaves are opening a bit, so they're not really going to grow a lot more. So I'm just going to go ahead and harvest it as well. Same thing here. I'm not going to get a lot off that. They're going to be little micro Brussels sprouts. Okay, moving down. Start here. These Brussels sprout leaves, by the way, are edible, but I usually have enough other stuff in the garden. I don't have a desire to eat them, but you could eat them like cabbage leaves if you wanted to. There's a spider there. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get my clippers around that guy. Whoa. Yeah, I may have to take the knife to it. See if I can do it that way. This may be, I may go ahead and pull the whole root out so I have leverage to. Here we go. Chopping it like a tree. Alright. Somebody's laughing at me. They know a better way to do it, I'm sure. Okay. Okay. Well, let me take these over to our our harvest table, workbench, and we'll peel those Brussels sprouts off the canes. Alright, so I'm gonna pull the canes over here and then put my basket over to my right, and I'm just gonna pop the Brussels sprouts off there. I've done this once before, but wouldn't say I'm an expert, so I'm going to try it by hand, and then if I need to use the knife, I'll switch over to that or the clippers or something. Well, let's see how it goes. And I actually don't need such a big basket. I'm going to grab a smaller basket for this. I like to fool myself into the size of my harvest by using small baskets when I don't have that much. Then it makes it look like I've got a bigger harvest. So you can see when the Brussels sprout's ready, or when it's past ready, it opens up. It's like a teeny little cabbage growing on the stalk, essentially. So it grows just like a cabbage. But you want, obviously, you know, the Brussels sprouts you get in the store, they're nice and big and round, and the heads are nice and tight. So these will be fine for home cooking. But most folks wouldn't buy them as a Brussels sprout because they're so small and because they're opening up like that. But I've harvested them like that and enjoyed them just the same. Yeah, pulling them off by hand is a little bit tricky. I'm gonna change up and see if clipping them off makes more sense here. And then if that doesn't work, then yeah, that's super easy, of course. I do it the hard way. Yeah, I bet the pros probably just take a knife or something and shoot. Well, the real pros, I'm sure they probably process this stuff by machine. But the semi-pros, maybe they do it a different way. Let's see if that works. I'll put my basket underneath so I don't lose anything. See if I just take my knife and you can see this one here where I didn't cut it off, I just chopped it in half. The trick is I got to go through one and not keep going and then chop through the other one unintentionally. Yeah, this seems to be the fastest way so far. Alright, next. Okay, I just learned something new about this, because what was happening is I would start up here and cut, and then my knife would keep going and I'd chop off half the next Brussels sprout, so I guess it makes sense, start from the bottom and work your way up. Then you don't have that problem. Okay. So that's what we got there. The next step will be to wash these by putting them in a, I'm going to put them in a pot of water to get rid of any bugs and dirt and stuff like that. And meanwhile, head off to tackle other projects in the garden. Well, we're over here in one of our brassica beds, and what I'm working on now is the Bok Choy. And this Bok Choy was planted in July, and it went through the kind of the hot and cold of our August into September here, hot and rainy and cold, kind of off and on. And so I don't think it really knew how to behave. And so you kind of see what happened here. You got a combination of it being relatively small but bolting with the stems and the flowers on it already. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out and then see what's usable and what's not. You'll also see the white flies flying around here because if you've seen in my other videos, our brassicas got decimated by white fly, and it's and these are brassicas. The Bok Choy are in the same family essentially as the cabbage and Brussels sprouts and broccolis. Okay, so getting to it here. These have pretty small roots, so I could just pull the roots out, but I don't want to take all the dirt that comes with it. So I'm just going to pull them out like so, kind of take a look at it and decide if there's anything there I want to keep. Yeah, I'll go ahead and that's edible. Perhaps not marketable, but edible. So here we go. Throw my scraps over there in the wheelbarrow. This guy's been really hit hard by bugs. And we do put out slug pellets, but it doesn't seem to have really helped with this. And then I've got whitefly all over it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and toss that one. It's not, there's really not a lot to salvage there between the bug damage and the bolting and the same thing there. Another bolted one here. I could here maybe salvage some of these inner leaves, but I'm not gonna do it. Too much work. Same thing this one. Too much damage. Let's get rid of it. Here, there's a lot of damage there. Okay, this one looks like there'll be something here to salvage, so cut that one out. Actually, that looks pretty good. I mean, there's some bugs on there, but we'll get them out with the washing process, so I'll just toss it in there. Again, this one's there's not enough there. Kill it. Just kill it. This one looks like I got some I can save, so take a look at it there. Ooh, look at all those white flies. Crazy. It's just some weeds. These guys. Okay. All right, well, this stuff's got some white fly around it, but I can wash that. It'll come right off. People won't even notice. I won't notice. I say people, we're the ones who eat it, so. All right. I'll see you all in the next segment. I am picking the last of our tomatoes. They may not be interesting to see how tasty they are or they aren't. Let me grab my wheelbarrow there. It's end of September and the rains have come, and that's usually what kills the tomatoes. I think if you look in old school gardening books, people talk about their plants getting killed by frost in the winter, but that's not really what stops the tomato growth here in Portland, Oregon. Typically for me, what stops the tomato growth is that they get waterlogged. That leads to diseases in the tomato plants themselves, but pretty much the tomatoes that are growing, even if they start to come ripe, aren't any good because they'll split. They just literally uptake so much water and then they just split. And the ones that aren't split, like these, I would anticipate they're gonna be very watery in their flavor. We'll go ahead and save them anyway. We might use them in a sauce or something. You could, if you got anxious, we could actually go through and pick the green ones now too. Some people, people in the South eat fried green tomatoes, and I have a Romanian friend who told me that there they pickle their green tomatoes and eat them. So I don't eat green tomatoes, but you might harvest them and save them for somebody who might have a use for them. But yeah, a lot of these are just split. If you've got tomatoes that are close to ripe, then you can pick them and they might just ripen on the counter. Tomatoes will typically ripen after you pick them as well. That's what the commercial growers actually do, is they typically pick their tomatoes unripe and then they ripen them, often using artificial means like gas that helps them ripen, and doing it that way, picking them up unripe and then ripening them by artificial means, allows them to store them longer and ship them over longer distances. That's how we get nice red tomatoes in the north in the winter time, is because they're picking them and shipping them from other places. Well, I'm going to continue on with this task, but as always, I want to thank you for joining us, and hope you got something out of this week's episode. And if you are getting anything out of all of this, then please subscribe to the videos, tell your friends and family about it, and help us build this community as we continue on our adventure of gardening here at PDX Garden Home. All right, I'll see you guys all next time. Take care.